Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the To The T podcast. We are on our 5th episode. Very excited to be here as always with our panel of experts. We have Bryce Voisin and John Brown of Greatlife Golf and GolfBack. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program. What's it been like out there for both of you in the past couple weeks?
It's been good. Weather's finally turned in Pennsylvania. We're actually getting out and playing golf. Not meeting our expectations like normal, but having a great time. But yeah, it's been good.
Yep. It's been good. Nice to get out on the golf course a couple times. And, looking forward to taking more of John's money.
Yeah, I almost clipped Bryce in our last match. He rolled in a 20-footer on 18 to tie me. Bummer.
He'll do that. Cut to that shot at Royal Manchester, Bryce, when you drained it on 18.
Yeah.
You remember, it doesn't happen often. All right, so we're going to start in our own backyard, gentlemen. The USGA is coming to our very own backyard right here, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, about 20 miles or so from the corporate office here at Greatlife Golf. John, tell us a little bit about the course itself, the Lancaster Country Club. What's it like on the grounds there? What's the atmosphere like? What can we expect from the tournament this weekend?
Well, everybody knows about the great clubs that are in the Philly section and in the Pittsburgh area in general. You got Oakmont, you got Marion, you got Aronimink, the list goes on, right? Lancaster Country Club is a hidden gem, right in the middle part of the state. It's about 35 miles south and east of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, the capital. The Ladies US Open was there in 2015, and ball's in the air about an hour ago for the ladies this week, and I'm really excited to see the golf course and how it showcases on TV. It brings some notoriety to our area for a quality golf course in Central PA that most probably don't know about, but I've played it twice, and it's a hidden gem.
We do need to touch on it since it was major news, national news, really. John, you were on site, of course, at Valhalla. We talked about that in our special edition last week. But the news that came out just a day ago, Scottie Scheffler's charges all officially dropped. Is this what we expected, guys?
Finally, finally, right? I think this was what needed to happen. I think this was what was always going to happen. I think you need to go about this process in a certain way so that, you don't throw your police force, under the bus in the process. But obviously, do we think that, do I believe that there was a felony act or even, an unlawful act? I don't. I think most of America didn't as well. And Scottie handled himself well, and it'll be a chapter in his book.
There's someone like Scottie Scheffler, John, Bryce, with his reputation the way that it is, I don't know that he's even capable of doing some of the things that were described here. However, does reputation speak to why he should get the benefit of the doubt, or someone of his nature should get the benefit of the doubt in this case? A lot of people were very quick to say, oh, he dragged a police officer 100 feet, things like that, crazy stuff that you see online, but that's internet trolls. So does his reputation sort of precede itself in a situation like this?
I mean, in our justice system, they'd probably tell you no, right? I mean, they make laws, and it's pretty black and white, and they try to eliminate gray area. That's why they write them like that on purpose. But luckily, I mean, I think there was enough video evidence to show that Scottie probably had no intent at all to hurt a police officer. I just heard yesterday in some footage that I saw, he clearly didn't even know it was a police officer, right? So to say that he had intent to assault a police officer, I think anyone with common sense would say that was a huge stretch.
He was innocent in the golf world, and that's because of his reputation. There's no doubt about that.
That's true.
Back to the women's front quickly. Some news broke earlier this week that Lexi Thompson will announce her retirement at the age of 29. And, we look at golf as a leisure activity, but often we forget the pressures of tour life, travel, balancing a family. And oftentimes the game becomes a full-time job for these young ladies and gentlemen, pretty much from the time that they're old enough to pick up a club. So, a lot of people came out and said that this is due to mental health, and she's getting out in front of it and making the decision. So let's briefly discuss the dichotomy here. What was your initial take and your response when you guys heard this news?
I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, her family has been around golf. Her two older brothers both played on the PGA Tour. So she comes from a significant golf background, and she's really been a child prodigy since the time she was 5. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much been like a full-time job since she was 5. I mean, if we're being realistic here. So I wasn't surprised to hear it. She's also been pretty open about some of the struggles that she's had and the toll that it's kind of taken on her mental health. and she's been open about what she's been doing in recent years to try to help that. So, she's been a tremendous asset to women's golf and golf in general. And I wasn't surprised.
And not the first time we've seen an LPGA player walk away very early. I think Lorena Ochoa was ranked number 1 at the time when she left. Now, I believe she left for family reasons and wanting to create that family unit and be at home. I think Lexi's leaving because of stress, pressure, and just, accumulation of, where she is at this point in her life. And if you remember, Lexi made the U.S. Open when she was 12 years old, made the cut when she was 14 years old, like child prodigy, absolutely. And then maybe not quite reaching the pinnacle of expectations and the pressure as a result. She's going to leave with 1 major and 11 tournaments that she's won. But, for me, I say more power to her, right? She had the ability to say, this is what's going to make me happy. And this is obviously a big decision, but I'm going to make it. And obviously with the news about Grayson Murray and what happened with him and the pressures of that life, I mean, that is a real thing. That travel, that, imbalance between the family dynamic and the work dynamic, I mean, it does weigh on these players, and not every person is going to handle it the same. And, there is absolute pressure. And I think probably what gets lost a lot of times by golf fans is just how much that pressure of travel and changing where you are each week impacts your life. I know from my standpoint, if I travel more than 3 or 4 days every 10, it's a huge impact to me, my life, my work life, my balance, right? And these players are doing it 5-6 days a week, sometimes 5-6 weeks in a row. So I think it's a real factor in the pressure cooker that is, professional golf.
And I've never been even close to feeling the pressure that Lexi Thompson feels or played on the level that she has played. But I just know as a somewhat competitive golfer that you rarely walk off the golf course being very satisfied with your round. Mm-hmm. And that's just the nature of golf. I think everyone, no matter what level you play at, most of the time you walk off the golf course, you're going to be disappointed with your finish, or you're going to say, I left a few out there, right? And doing that for a career and with all that pressure day after day, I mean, it's got to wear on you.
What do you got for us today on the main course?
Well, this really stems from, if you benchmark our 54 facilities against each other, what are those key matrices that really indicate that you'll have some success building a golf operation that can self-sustain, reinvest, throw off some profits for owners, and be a real asset in a community. And I think there's some key areas to focus on. And what we've noticed inside our portfolio is if you don't hit certain triggers, you're going to have some challenges, meeting the standard while throwing off some profits. So these are the key business matrices that we've come up with. They're very basic in general, but you can layer these in right over any golf operation, compare it to your operation. And I have a feeling if you're meeting these matrices, you're probably doing pretty well. If you're not, there's probably room for improvement. So that is what we're going to focus on today, Jordan. The first one is your total revenues. As an 18-hole facility or a 36-hole facility, there's certain annual revenues that if you don't achieve as a golf operation, you're really going to struggle. And those basic numbers, I'm going to give very basic numbers here, but for 18-hole facility, it's $1.6 million. For a 36-hole facility, it's $2.2 million. If you map out our entire portfolio, 54 holes, any club that falls sort of under that ratio or under that annual revenue number, we tend to struggle with from a profitability standpoint. Any clubs that hit those numbers, as long as we're hitting our other key business matrices numbers, figures, we do pretty well with. So basic numbers. If you're looking at a club that's for sale, or you're looking at your own club, or even if you're looking to maybe go and accept a job at a new club, if you see a club that's under those annual revenues, that should be a red flag number one. Number two plays off of number one, the percentage of revenues that you garner from golf revenues. And we're going to define golf revenues as membership dues, green fees, cart fees, merchandise revenue, and range revenue. That is your golf revenues in our mind. That revenue is a stronger revenue. It flows dollar for dollar, except for the merchandise revenue. The other four do. Dollar for dollar to your bottom line. And we really want to see an allocation, a percentage of total revenues that's strong, tilted towards golf revenues. And we look at that number as 70%. So if you're looking at a club that's doing $2 million, you really want to see about $1.4 million being derived from golf revenues. So 70% golf revenues as part of your overall annual revenues of your club is going to give you a nice, strong foundation where you have dollars that are strong dollars flowing to your bottom line. All right, for 3 and 4, they interplay together, but a lot of folks look at merchandising and just merchandise revenue, and they kind of just think about the sales number. They don't think about 2 key factors. A lot of folks think about 1 key factor, which is cost of goods. In our portfolio, we're 65% cost of goods. So if we do $100,000 in annual sales, the cost on those sales will be about $65,000. So we'll net a profit of about $35,000. But the second one, and frankly the more important one in my mind, is your inventory turn ratio, which is how many times you turn your inventory over in a year. And you really want to turn your inventory over 3 times in a year, right? So in a scenario where you're doing $100,000 in sales and you're doing $65,000 of cost, you want to turn that cost over 3 times in a year, which really means you need standing inventory of 1/3 of $65,000. So approximately right about $22,000 of inventory in your shop, which in those scenarios, $22,000, pretty light number. But what you want to see is you want to see that inventory turning 3 times over in a year. That'll allow you to sell your product for retail pricing, not have to discount, while still providing a product line that your customer base is looking for.
So quick sidebar on that, John. If you're not turning over your inventory or certain items 3 times in a year, does that mean that perhaps those items are not attractive to your particular clientele at your club, or could there be another factor involved?
That's absolutely one reason that could be happening, Jordan. But in most cases, it's probably because you're just carrying too much inventory. Your expectations for sales are maybe a little bit higher than what you're able to achieve in that shop environment during the course of 12 months. So in all likelihood, you're probably just carrying too much inventory. For example, if you're selling $100,000 worth of merchandise in the course of the year, and hopefully you're doing more, but let's just use $100,000, and you're carrying $50,000 worth of inventory, it's going to be very hard to turn that over 3 times in 1 year and achieve the results you need. We're on the last one, the most important one. If you have the annual revenues, the next line you need to look at is your labor percentage of total revenues. And labor percentage is the makeup of all your costs associated with labor. So it's wages, it's workers' comp, it's health insurance, it's everything that goes into bringing those employees to your facility. If you're above 40% of your total revenues, you're going to have trouble. Our portfolio average is right about 37%. But you really need to achieve a number percentage that's lower than 40 to have any success. If you're a $2 million club every single year and you're running at 50% labor to revenues, i.e. $1 million, you're not going to be profitable, and that's a fact, right? But if you operate at 40%, right, now we just picked up $200,000, right, of bottom line margin in that scenario, you're going to have a chance. So labor to your overall annual revenues is a very important number.
Yeah, I got 3 things, and they're pretty simple. And I feel like with this first one, I'm always talking about it, but it continues to be the number one thing that helps golf courses drive online rounds of revenue. And that is daily steals. Daily steals are promotional tee times that are available at the course website. We find that our operators that choose to post daily steals, 1 or 2 of those promotional tee times a day, sell on average 42% more online rounds than courses that do not. So I'm obviously encouraging golf courses to post those daily steals. There are good things that happen when you do. Number 1, you're creating price loyalty in a channel that is a direct channel. Number 2, you're collecting all that golfer data so you can remarket to those golfers. And number 3, it stops the phone from ringing as much. So the more golfers you can drive to book online, the less the phone's ringing. For the second one, something that I'm always seeing with our operators, and I'm hearing a lot, is just operators that have assumed constraints about their prices going up in periods of high demand. They think, my golf course is a $50 golf course on weekend mornings, and it's a $50 golf course because golf course B down the street is a $55 golf course, and my golf course just isn't quite as good as that one. I want to challenge your way of thinking, and I'm constantly challenging our operators that have high demand to allow the tools to take the price above where they think that price may be. At the end of the day, the price should be what the golfer is willing to pay, and you don't know what that is until you really test the market. For my third item, I'm going with something that I think golf course operators don't pay enough attention to, and that is just the ease of use of their online booking engine. When I talk to a lot of golf course operators, they've never even actually made a tee time at their own online booking engine or at their own website. So I would encourage operators to actually go to their website, act as if they were a golfer, and go through the booking process utilizing their own website and their own booking engine. One thing that we've recently done at GolfBack is we have something that's called a PWA, which is basically a web app, and it allows the golfer, when they get to the booking engine page, to actually download that page as an app to their home screen on their mobile device. So they can then install it, and all they got to do is click a button, and anytime they click that button, that booking engine is going to come up on their mobile device. We find that about 80% of all online tee times are booked through a mobile device now. So we think having that feature is really important for our clients, and it's also really makes it really easy for the golfer to book tee times online. So those are my three nuggets.
All right, gentlemen, coming down the home stretch here onto Duff Said. And again, I'm going to give you guys some scenarios here. Some may be very familiar, some may be a little bit out of left field. But again, these are broad strokes, right? You're not armed with all the information that you need to make a sound decision. So I know you're both numbers guys. You like hard data and hard facts. So just do the best you can. How about that? All right? All right. The future of the company does not depend on decisions made today. Thank God. All right. So we're going to look at fictitious or hypothetical scenario one. A semi-private club has a board meeting where 3 out of 20 board members mention that they would like to see an in-ground pool on the property within 2 years. The club has approximately 350 members and is growing at a modest rate year over year. You have a space for the pool, but you're short-staffed, especially in the food and beverage department. A fourth member of the board insists on limited menu and beverage options poolside. John, you first. Are you buying or selling on this investment?
I'd love to give you a yes or no. It totally depends on the key business matrices of the other streams of revenue, right? So what is their annual revenues? What's the allocation of revenues? Does it make sense for a pool to be put in? Can you drive your social membership? What are your F&B expectations? What I would definitely do is return on investment analysis. Pools are expensive, so it'd have to look pretty lucrative for it to make sense.
Yeah, I agree with everything John said. I would say overall, just dealing with semi-private clubs that have a public play perspective, I think that pools maybe always aren't the best idea. So just throwing that in there, but definitely need more information to make a 100% informed decision on this one.
Fair enough. So it's not as simple as like, hey, my kids want a pool and I want free babysitting while I'm golfing, so make one.
Definitely not that simple.
But we do hear that in the private club environment quite a bit.
No one in particular, of course.
Yeah.
All right. So we're still on the fence a little bit there with the pool. Sorry, Mavis. We'll work on it. All right. Scenario 2. It's been a very dry season. Rounds are down 10% since last year. The weather has been poor and uncomfortable. A general manager proposes a $100,000 investment idea to gut the current banquet hall and then add a TrackMan golf simulator with new flooring, fresh paint, TVs, and comfortable furnishings. The club turns a minor profit, but is basically broken even for the past years. John, are you buying or selling this proposition or this idea or the gall that this GM has to even suggest such an idea when he's a break-even Steven?
So the transition of a banquet room where it's a break-even space right now, I think is something that all clubs should analyze, right? Unfortunately, the banquet business, for the most part, it's kind of changed over time. And so it's not nearly the profit center that it has been in the past. But you still need the infrastructure, and infrastructure costs from an organizational standpoint to serve as banquets is still there, right? So can you repurpose a space, have it be a revenue-driving space, and make sense, and maybe make sense with less logistics? I think it's a worthwhile conversation. We are a top tracer build at Orange Lake in about a year, and then we've got 2 TrackMan studios just like this, which we're in about 4 months in one, brand new in the other. So I need a little bit more time analyzing the fact that we've already done this at 2 of our clubs to see what the return is. I think it is trending towards being a positive decision in this situation.
Yeah, just given the details there, Jordan, you said it was a break-even club. And so hearing that, I would assume their banquet business probably is at best break-even. So I think anytime you have something that is potentially losing money, it's a good idea to think about better use of the space. And certainly TrackMan or golf simulators, I think, is an option that all golf course owners should be looking at.
Are you buying or selling a GM who has the gusto to even suggest such a wild new way of out-of-the-box thinking?
Definitely buying on a GM that has out-of-the-box thinking.
Definitely buying, as long as they come with some return on investment reports and not just ideas.
Which I provided none of.
Yeah.
But again, hypothetical. All right, so we got a semi interested buyer here. All right. Scenario 3 and our final one of the day. Your food and beverage business has never been great. You have hot dogs and chips and maybe some drinks. A member of your staff says his uncle has a food truck that serves breakfast sandwiches and tacos. Great mix. He's offering $1,500 a month to park his food truck on site 3 days a week for 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. Now, obviously, there's logistics. There's probably insurance. There's all kinds of zoning things and things of that nature. But just in general, overall, that idea, are we buying or selling this concept of a food truck on site when your F&B business is not the greatest?
Well, that's not a solution for all clubs, but it could be a solution for some clubs. You really have to think about the brand and the identity of the club. Does a food truck, mix with what you're trying to achieve from a brand standpoint? I would say at $1,500 a month, I'd ask, whether the food truck can self-sustain to make profits at that number, because if they don't, inevitably something bad will happen. So it's almost reverse engineering, right? I think the revenue stream is good for the club, but, can the food truck make that work? Because if it doesn't, then inevitably we're making a different decision down the road anyways. But I would say that this is a 7 out of 10 interest in a public golf course forum that has a basic F&B operation currently.
Yep. Yeah, if the food and beverage operation is not making any money, I'm probably asking myself, am I able to cut hours in our actual restaurant, cut labor, cut expense, have the food truck open as an option and guarantee myself some profit during those times? Mm-hmm. That would be my line of thinking. If I have a profitable food and beverage operation, I probably would not be interested in this option.
Yes, and Jordan has just killed our ability to operate any fine dining anywhere after answering questions about food trucks. So
100%.
Real quick off the cuff, John, Bryce, are you buying or selling the idea that, let's just call it virtual golf in layman's terms, the virtual golf, the TrackMans of the world business will grow by 50% over the next 5 years? Buying or selling that idea?
50% is a lot of growth, and they already represent, 20% of green grass to off green grass?
I think I'm selling. I think that number's too aggressive.
I agree. I do think it'll grow, but I don't think it'll grow that much.
So do I. Yep.
Buying or selling the concept that with professional golf sort of having, I wouldn't call it a boom period, but with LIV and with PGA, with TrackMan, Top Golf, Top Tracer, things of that nature, that the golf business is moving in a great and exciting direction moving into the future. Buying or selling that idea?
I'm buying on that. I definitely think that everything that's happening in golf, including golf simulators, is leading to more interest in the game. I think people that are younger are getting more interested in the game. So I'm bullish on golf long term, and I'm buying there.
I'm bullish on the economics of player counts growing and the supply continuing to shrink. I do think that the business is going to level out here pretty soon for a period of time, but that's okay. So I think I wouldn't call it great. I would call it good.
All right, last one. Buying or selling the idea that a LIV and PGA merger will happen within the next 5 years?
Within 5 years, I'm buying that. I just think that eventually it's going to happen, although it doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
Buying. It'll happen.
Moving into the lip out, gentlemen, running down the home stretch, off into the sunset. The floor is yours, John. Take us home with whatever you want to talk about.
I'd like to just give a shout out to Auburn University and Stanford University for winning the men's NCAA golf team competitions and the ladies NCAA team golf competitions. And I don't understand why these events don't get more of a draw, and especially from folks that love golf. They're great events. The men's event itself last night, the event ended 3 matches to 2 matches. A lot of drama, and I actually took a look at the last 10 years. There's been 10 different champions over the last 10 years in the men's team competition. 5 of those events have ended 3-2, so 5 players from one team play 5 players of another team. So 5 times the NCAA team championship has come down to 1 match. It's really unbelievable. Couple that with the new PGA Tour University, which is basically a pipeline into the PGA Tour. And Ludwig Aberg was the winner of that last year. We've seen in 2023, we've seen what he's done on tour. And, there's just some quality players that are coming up as part of that pipeline who are getting, the winner of the PGA Tour University gets full access to the PGA Tour, and then his conditional status on the Korn Ferry for a lot of the other players that make that list. But it's a great pipeline. The men's team competition is wonderful. I don't understand why the event's not bigger, but I want to give Auburn University a shout out for, they were unbelievable. This was their 10th win this year, 10 wins in 1 year. So you could argue they might be one of the greatest men's teams that's ever existed. And great event last night. So shout out to Auburn University.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out. It's something that we don't mention much on this podcast, but I really feel like it's the backbone of our business and the backbone of our industry, and that is golf course superintendents, and just people that take care of golf courses all over the country and all over the world. We obviously don't talk about it much on this podcast, but if we didn't have nice grass out there for golfers to play on, I don't think we'd have much to talk about here. So just want to give a shout out to the superintendents and the work that they do every day.
Absolutely, 100%.
Thanks, gentlemen. Of course, this is To The Tee. We're available on all major platforms and, of course, the Great Life Golf YouTube channel. Bryce, John, great stuff as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.